Welcome friends, in this episode we will explore the intricacies of Mu'tazilite theology, their doctrines, their complex views on the nature of reality, causality and the persistence of the physical properties commonly referred as to accidents. We will also discuss how their ideas on atomism, causality and the attributes of God influence the broader intellectual landscape of the time. By the late 8th century, Islamic scholarly circles were buzzing with lively debates on theological and philosophical issues. These discussions often took place in public debates or at the court of caliphs involving various schools of thought, including the Mu'tazilites. Based mainly in Basra and Baghdad, these thinkers played a key role in shaping Islamic theology, particularly in the development of Kalām and the Greco-Arabic translation movement. However, none of the original works of the early Mu'tazilite theology have survived, and what we know about their doctrines comes from later sources, many of which were written by their opponents like Abu al-Hasan al-Ash'ari's Maqalatul Islamiyyin, which dates from the early 10th century. All the time, the Mu'tazilites were often portrayed negatively in these accounts, especially in works like al-Baghdadi's Al-Farq Bayn al-Firaq and al-Shahristani's Al-Milal wal-Nihal. Some Mu'tazilite doctrines were preserved by their own scholars, such as in Abdul Jabbar al-Hamazani's Fadlul al-I'tizal and Ibn al-Murtazad's Tabaqat al-Mu'tazila. And the renowned writer Al-Jahiz included a significant discussion of An-Nizami's physical theories in his Kitab al-Hayawan. Traces of some theological debates are also found in Al-Khayyat's Kitab al-Intisar, which critiques Ibn Rawandi's rebuttal of Al-Jahiz's summary of Mu'tazilite thought. Although the original works are lost, Al-Khayyat quotes and critically examines Ibn Rawandi's argument. The task of interpreting these texts is challenging. The harsh criticism from opponents doesn't always mean that interpretations are inaccurate or affiliation with a particular school doesn't ensure reliability. The surviving fragments often preserve doctrines without the supporting arguments, making them difficult to understand even today. For example, Al-Ash'ari, when discussing the motion of the bodies, reports they disagreed about whether motion was at rest or not. Most theorists said that's impossible. Some said when a body comes to be in a place and remains there for 2 moments, its motion becomes arresting. However, overall, reconstructing their original teachings is challenging due to the fragmentary and biased nature of the sources. The Mu'tazilite movement is traditionally linked with 2 key figures, Wasil ibn Atta and Amr ibn Ubayd, both from Basra and connected with the renowned scholar Al-Hasan al-Basri. The name Mu'tazila is often thought to reflect their withdrawal, i'tizal, from Hasan al-Basri's study circle, though some scholars argue it relates to their ascetic lifestyle. This association also emphasized the importance of the free will Qadarism in their teachings. By the late 8th century, notable figures like Dirar ibn Amr and Abu al-Hudayl began to represent Mu'tazilism in Basra and Baghdad. The movement gained prominence at the court of the Caliph al-Ma'mun, with al-Nizam and Abu al-Hudayl becoming influential. Despite their earlier association with asceticism, Mu'tazilites become known for their sophisticated and cosmopolitan presence at the court and influencing the intellectual environment of the time. Later Mu'tazilites sought to refine their history, distancing themselves from the controversial figures like Dirar ibn Amr. They became known as rationalizing theologians using logical methods to defend Islamic beliefs. Their most famous critical role was during the Mihna, the trial or the persecution period, where they advocated for the doctrine that the Quran was created rather than eternal, a stance that became a state ideology against the Hanabalites. In religious sources, the Mu'tazilites were also summarized by a set of 5 core principles the later followers and circles recognize, and that we have briefly discussed in our previous episode. These principles include Tawheed, the absolute oneness of God; Al-Adl, God's justice; Al-Wa'd wal-Wa'id, the promise and threat of eternal reward or punishment; Al-Manzila bayn al-Manzilatayn, the intermediate rank or intermediate state concerning the status of sinful Muslims, al-amr bil ma'ruf wal-nahy anil munkar, the command to do right and forbid wrong. However, these principles were not unique to Mu'tazilites and didn't serve to distinguish them sharply from other Muslim groups like the Murji'ites. Instead, they acted as categories for the theological debate. For instance, under the principle of al-adl, the Mu'tazilite developed a unique theodicy that emphasized human responsibility for actions. As Mu'tazilite thought evolved, it addressed significant issues in Islamic theology and influenced the emerging philosophical movement. The classical period of Islamic philosophy, represented by thinkers like Al-Farabi and Ibn Sina, drew heavily from Mu'tazilite ideas alongside the Greco-Arabic translation movement. Over time, Mu'tazilite cosmology grew more complex with a focus on atomism and other intricate physical theories. The Mu'tazilite had a complex and varied understanding of atomism. They didn't all agree on a single concept of the atom, and some, like An-Nizam, even denied the idea of invisible atoms, arguing instead for infinite divisibility of the matter. Among those who accepted atomism, there were diverse views on the atom, referred to as al-juz'u alladhi la yatajazza, actually was and how it related to composite the bodies. Some Mu'tazilites used the term jawhar, which later became a philosophical term for substance, instead of juz. In both systems, jawhar was considered the primary entity capable of bearing the physical properties and changes, while a'rad, accident, was the term for individual properties that existed in the atom. By the time of the great Kalām scholars, the idea that atoms and accident were the fundamental components of the universe, excluding God, was well established. This physical theory led to the development of the Kalām atomism and laid the groundwork for occasionalism in Islamic thought. Despite variations in how these concepts were understood, the underlying idea remained that the universe was made up of the discrete, contingent entities that could be categorized as either atom or the accidents. However, problems arose when considering complex natures, the nature of composition, psychological attributes, so on and so forth. For instance, Abul Hudayl proposed that a body was made up of at least 6 particles, each with properties like existing and touching, while other properties like color, taste, and scent added to the body once it was formed. Hisham ibn al-Hakam defined a body as a something existent, a thing, and self-subsistent. An-Nizam, on the other hand, saw all accident as bodies in themselves, reserving the term accident only for motion and rejecting the idea of substrate entirely. Meanwhile, Dirar ibn Amr considered accidents to be the constituent parts of the bodies, and Abad ibn Sulaiman defined a body as a location. The Mu'tazilite had diverse views on the fundamental nature of reality, particularly concerning the nature of physical properties and causality. For instance, Abul Hudayl al-Allaf believed that a quince has a body made up of the real parts with properties like sweetness and wetness that are inherent in the whole. An-Nadam, on the other hand, thought that these properties existing along with their hidden opposites which could emerge under certain conditions. Meanwhile, Dirar ibn Amr viewed the quince as an arrangement of the adjacent part, ensuring that the properties like wetness stayed within the body. When it came to causality and the persistence of the properties or accidents, 3 main approaches emerged among the Mu'tazilites. First, accidents were continuously caused by God. Second, some accidents naturally arose from their substrate without divine intervention. And third, certain accidents were linked to the human agency. For example, Mu'ammar argued that the physical properties naturally emerged from the body due to its inherent nature, while An-Nizam suggested that certain properties arose based on their latent tendencies. A common example used to explore the causality was the burning of the cotton. In An-Nizam's view, the heat and the light of the fire had to overcome the cotton's non-combustible qualities. Accidents, being temporary, needed something to cause their persistence or disappearance. The concept of remaining, baqa, of the accident became a complex issue. Some Mu'tazilites like Abu Hudayl believed that the remaining or perishing was directly commanded by God, while Mu'ammar argued that an infinite chain of remainings and perishings. In their efforts to make all accidents concrete, some Mu'tazilites consider the createdness, khalq of things as an added quality. Abu Hudayl resolved this by considering accidents as part of the created structure of the thing they qualified, meaning that a thing's properties were simple aspects of its created nature. This idea led to the concept of occasionalism, where the continuous reaction of each atom was necessary to explain the persistence of things. Hisham ibn al-Hakam, for example, reduced many properties to attributes, sifat, but not in the same way as accident which he saw as bodies. This approach was also used to deal with the divine attributes. The Mu'tazilites' analysis of motion as an instantaneous accident left open the possibility of the opposite view as preserved by Al-Ash'ari, who reduced that Jahm ibn Safwan believed the motions were bodies, arguing that whatever is not a body is God and there is nothing like him. As we have seen, the Mu'tazilites were far from monolithic in their views, particularly regarding the nature of the reality and causality. The debates laid the groundwork for many foundational concepts in Islamic theology and philosophy, from the nature of accident to the intricate theories of atomism. This discussion not only influenced their contemporaries but also left a lasting legacy and impact in the development of the Islamic thought and theology. Friends, in the next episode, we will continue this discussion further, uncovering the Mu'tazilites' contribution to the Islamic theology and exploring how their ideas evolved and interacted with other schools of thought. So please stay tuned as we go deeper into the intellectual richness of this remarkable period in Islamic history. Thanks for watching.